What's up everyone, it's Wizard101 back again with another video, and today I just want to talk about some common mistakes I see both new and veteran players making in the game. I've made some of these mistakes before and they're usually pretty easy to fix, honestly. This video will reiterate a lot of things I said in my tips and tricks video as well, so if you watch that you probably know a lot of what I'm going to say, but I want to provide more detail on some of the points. Before we get started though, I just want to say that 95% of you watching are not subscribed, so if you do enjoy the content, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, as it really helps out the channel, and consider joining the Discord in the description as well. With all that being said, let's get right into the video. The first mistake I see players make is overfilling their deck. I used to make this mistake a lot when I was new to the game, and I also mentioned this in my tips and tricks video, but more cards does not equal better at all. You should ideally keep 2 decks, 1 mob deck with 7 cards max, and 1 boss deck with around 8 to 12 cards, so you could always reliably pull the cards you want in a fight. In later worlds, enemies can kill you very fast, and 1 turn can be the difference between life and death, especially if you're in a school with less health like Fire or Storm. Generally, you want to keep a Blade or 2, an Aura, and 2 enchants with 2 hits for a mob deck. The boss deck is pretty similar, just edit the old deck to add a feint, maybe 2 if you have Potent or another stackable option, another Blade with Sharpened Blade, and a single target hit in case you don't kill the boss with an AoE. Honestly, the boss deck is a bit more subjective depending on what school you are, your level bracket, and how you want to play, but it's usually a good idea to keep your boss deck small as well so you can pull the cards you want and kill in a reasonable amount of time. The second mistake I want to talk about is spending your crowns on unnecessary things. The Atmoplex recently leaked the biggest sources of revenue from the crown shop, and it was not looking good. People were spending their money on things like gold and mega snack packs, which really just aren't worth it at all. Mega snack packs only really give you 1 mega snack, like a garden with couch potatoes or evil magma piece, and get you a bunch of mega snacks without spending any money. If you don't like gardening, you could also farm up Mirror Lake and Zafaria for Pixie Sticks, which is a mega snack that you get 2 guaranteed drops of on completion of the dungeon. For gold, you really don't need to spend crowns to get a high amount. Selling drops you get from the bazaar is really helpful and should get you up to high numbers pretty fast, and there are also items that you could farm that get you to high gold at relatively early levels. I'll be linking a variety of videos in the description giving a variety of sources for gold. Generally, there is a boss you farm in Grizzlehiem that gives you drops that sell for a ton of gold, and if you're later in the game, Lemuria specifically, a lot of that hierarchy gear sells for an honestly unreasonable amount of gold in the bazaar. There really isn't any reason to spend crowns on things like gold or mega snack packs because you get these things much more efficiently for free. Instead, you should focus your crowns on things that could actually help you in the game. Packs like the Professor's Forge pack are really good. World packs are really good as well if you don't really want to farm for the best gear, or you could just save the money and not buy the crowns. Mounts are also something I want to stress to you for free. Some people don't realize that you could buy certain mounts for gold as opposed to crowns, which can help you save a lot of time, as mounts are very useful for their speed boosts if you don't want to spend money on mounts, and it can also save you crowns if you're just buying mounts for the speed boost and don't really care about the cosmetics. The next mistake is also related to gold, and it is selling items in quick sell. This relates to the reason why spending crowns on gold is such a waste. You get a ton of gold from simply selling items to the bazaar. I'll do a side-by-side comparison between a robe and quick sell and a robe I was selling to the bazaar. There are some items that you can't sell to the bazaar. You could use quick sell for those items. Generally, it is the best practice to sell items in the bazaar because you get so much more gold this way. Items aren't the only things you sell to the bazaar either. You could also sell reagents if you don't need them, which can help with gold a lot as well. You could use that gold for pet making, buying mounts, houses, wherever you want really. The next mistake I see is players not using jewels or unlocking sockets. I've seen players confused about the sockets on rings, themes, and amulets, and they're really important for late game content like Novus and Wallaru, since a lot of enemies now have universal resist, which was honestly a very sudden change, and it made a stat not really used much outside of PvP very relevant to playing through PvE. You should generally know about jewels and sockets even before you reach Novus. Use triangle jewels for pip chance, item cards, and accuracy, square jewels for health, jewels for small amounts of health and item cards, arguably the most important, the ones you use for pierce and damage, circle jewels. Circle jewels, particularly pierce jewels, are very important and you can farm them in a variety of places, the most popular being the 40 Thieves and Mirage. I still see so many people ignoring the pierce stat, and I see them struggling through Wallaru, as it was a huge difficulty spike from Novus, making good pierce even more necessary in that world. To unlock sockets to use these pierce jewels, you can either use crowns or you could use socket wrenches. You get socket wrenches in a variety of ways, but the most popular way is by farming Crash the Bandicoot in Wallaru. Honestly, it's a huge pain to farm socket wrenches, so if you do have the crowns to spare, this may be a good way to use them if you don't want to deal with RNG. The next mistake I see players making is not making use of pets as a feature. This is another stats related thing, but there are still a ton of players running pets with bad talents, not really knowing the potential of pets within the game. You should really aim to get a triple double pet or a quick damage pet depending on the school, with a triple double pet being a pet with 3 damage talents and 2 resist talents along with Mighty, and a quint damage pet being a pet with 5 damage talents along with Mighty. Pets really do make the game much easier, especially during the beginning of the game where it's very hard to get actually good stats. Pets are also something you need for raids, which are becoming a huge part of the game, and they've always been a large part of PvP. Some beginners also have the misconception that pets they buy in the crown shop are naturally better than the ones they could just buy in the kiosk or hatch, but usually they come with pretty bad talents, and there really isn't any reason to buy these pets as opposed to just hatching with other people who have these pets for the possibility of getting their pet bodies back besides cosmetics. Some of these crown shop pets are exclusive though, meaning that you can't get their pet body back, but there are still many cool pet bodies that you get through just hatching in the kiosk. Early game, you should prioritize getting a pet body with a blade item card and continuously work on pets to get the talents that you want. It will help you in the long run. The next mistake I see is players wasting their training points to train into a second school. While dual schooling is now more of a thing than it was in the past, using it at earlier levels isn't really optimal unless you have specific steps to help you dual school, which most players definitely don't have, especially if they're just starting out. Even then, power pips will only work for your school until you get Arch Mastery at level 50 unless you have a Mastery amulet. Instead of training into a random second school, you should spend your training points on the Death School up until you get the Faint card, as it's honestly probably the best buff in the game and something you'll use in 90% of boss fights after you train it. Other than that, training points are also useful for training auras and enchants once you get to higher level brackets. Training points are also very useful for advanced contents like raids and PvP once you get to the max levels. Even if you did waste your training points though, there's usually free training point buyback once every month or so you will be able to get those training points back without spending crowns. Save your training points, it'll help you in the long run. The next mistake I see is players only using Bazaar gear or gear dropped by random enemies in the game. Now don't get me wrong, in the early game Bazaar gear is pretty decent because gear is kind of all over the place. However, as you progress there becomes clear best sets to use in the game, and if you're trying to have a nice and easy questing experience, you really shouldn't be using Bazaar gear, and most gear that random enemies drops is pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie. It's really common to see people in the middle worlds of the game, like Azteca for example, just rocking Bazaar gear at a point where you really should just be using Waterworks or pack alternatives. Ideally at level 30 you should aim for Zeus gear in Mount Olympus, level 60 is Waterworks gear in Crab Alley, level 100 is Malister gear in Darkmoor, and then starting at Lemuria the best gear set changes every 10 levels, so you should be farming Merciless gear in Hall of Heroes at level 150, Aeon gear at level 160, though I honestly recommend skipping this one if you already have Merciless gear, and Dream Reaver gear at level 170. I'm running mostly Reaver gear, and these are my stats without damage tools. I'm running a lot of Pierce tools right now because it's my raid setup, but if you replace some of the Pierce tools with damage tools, you could easily hit around 235 or 240-ish. You don't really need to min-max for PvE, but generally I'd recommend around 230 to 240 damage for fire and around 40 to 50 Pierce. The last mistake is kind of subjective, but in my opinion, questing too fast can be a mistake in some scenarios. This one depends on who you are as a player, but for me it's very easy to get burnt out on the game if I'm questing really fast and want to get through the game as fast as possible. Back when I had a lot more time, I would have phases of 2 weeks where I'd just be like grinding on this game, probably playing for a few hours each day, and then I have like a good month or two where I couldn't touch the game because it just didn't seem enjoyable and I was like super burnt out. My more enjoyable playthroughs have definitely been the ones where I take my time and play through the game trying to enjoy every world as opposed to just trying to rush through each world, because honestly this game can get very repetitive and some worlds are definitely way better than others and shouldn't just be done in a day or just a few hours. There are definitely some shorter worlds that could still be enjoyable if you rush through them, but the longer worlds like Azteca for example, you probably shouldn't just rush through it in one day. I did that once. I did not enjoy it at all. I did not want to touch the game for like months afterwards, I'm not gonna lie. I've also heard similar things from other people on how easy it is to get burnt out from Wiz, so I would honestly just recommend to take breaks, space out playtime. Don't keep playing if questing feels like a constant chore, because honestly it will feel like that sometimes. You know, just log off, log on like in a week or two. It's a lot harder to get burnt out if you take your time. With all that being said, that's it for the video today. If you found me going over these mistakes helpful at all, I encourage you to leave a like or a sub as it really helps out the channel. As always, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.